Drunk, high, texting while driving. What do these things have to do with the value of your accident case? We're going to talk about it on this week's Monday Morning Attorney. Good morning, and happy Monday out there. This is Attorney Bowers, your accident and injury guy, right here live from my Elkton office, coming at you with some interesting information that comes up in a lot of these cases that we deal with. And I'm going to be very clear before I get into this, that the information that I'm sharing in this week's episode only applies to the state of Maryland. It may apply in similar fashion to other states, but I'm not making any of those claims because I'm not licensed to practice in those states. However, I do know that what the rules are and how things work here in Maryland on this specific topic are very different than if it were an accident that happened in Pennsylvania or an accident that happened in Delaware. I'm not licensed there, so I'm not going to get into the details, but because we are so close and we deal with this all the time, people that live in these other jurisdictions that get in accidents in Maryland, or Maryland drivers that get into accidents in these other jurisdictions, it's important to know. But more importantly, this doesn't come up in conversation in my office because of the differences between the states. It comes up because it's just a common question. You get in an accident. The police come to the scene, an ambulance comes to the scene. Sometimes you're rushed away in the ambulance because of the severity of the injuries, and you don't entirely get the entire story each and every time. I have clients on a very regular basis who come into my office and meet with me, and there are just things about how the accident happened that lead them to believe that the driver who caused the accident may have been drunk, may have been on some sort of drugs, or may have been distracted texting while driving. Who's not texting while driving? Is so much. I see it all the time when I'm out there driving. And when it comes down to the point of what is the case worth, those questions always come up. I see we have a few people in here watching live. Please comment, enter, or something of that nature into the chat so that I can see who you are. We have changed slightly the rules on our giveaways. We're going to do a giveaway pretty much every week, almost every week in this podcast. But we need to have a minimum for now, and this may change and this may go up over time. We need to have at least 5 people in the chat entered in the drawing. If we do that this week, which will be having 5 people entered in here by the end of this stream, it's going to be a $25 gift card to the grocery outlet here in Elkton. If for whatever reason we don't have 5 people in the podcast live, that gift is going to get rolled over and we'll do the drawing for it next week. I've got something excited lined up for next week anyway. So if we can't do the giveaway today, then we will certainly jump on and do that next week. All you got to do is put a little, just hit enter or something in the comments, either here or on Facebook. So back to this conversation of what happens in my case, value-wise, if the other driver is proven or suspected of texting while driving or being under the influence of any substance, whether drugs or alcohol. And the answer to that question, disappointingly to most of my clients, is more or less nothing. In Maryland, there is nothing extra that happens. What I will say to clarify is that those things can be a significant factor in determining who is at fault. However, beyond that, there's nothing that you don't get extra money or more pain and suffering specifically in the state of Maryland because that person was in one of those categories. Generally speaking, and I think that we've talked about this and touched on this in previous episodes, there are really 3 things that go into the equation, 3 factors, 3 elements that are important when determining what we can resolve one of these accident cases for here in Maryland. Number one, liability. In Maryland, the at-fault driver, in order to be forced to pay, needs to be 100% at fault. Or, more importantly, to clarify, the recipient, the claimant, has to be 0% at fault. It is certainly possible for two different at-fault people to be partially at fault and split that between the two. However, the person that we represent has to be 0% at fault for us to be able to recover anything for them. That liability element is like a light switch, a traditional basic light switch. It is either in the on position or in the off position. And I make the analogy and reference to a light switch and a basic light switch so that I can draw the distinction between those dimmer switches that you might have. When it comes to liability and these accident cases in the state of Maryland, there is no dimmer switch. It is on or it is off. Now, damages are things that we've talked about in many, many episodes in the past. What kind of medical treatment did you need to receive to get better? Did you get better? Are you permanently injured? How did this impact your daily life? I think it was last week's episode that we talked about a lot of those activities of daily living. Go back to that episode. I'll put a link in the description on YouTube here so you can easily reference that. That's super important stuff. However, that overall value of your case is not directly or in any sort of factor impacted by the status of that other driver, whether they were intoxicated, under the influence of any sort of drugs, texting while driving, or any other sort of distracting thing that could have happened. This does not mean that if those facts are described and come up in testimony during a jury trial, that a jury may not give a little extra because of that, but they're not supposed to. By law, they're not supposed to. The purpose of these settlements is not, unfortunately, to punish the at-fault driver. They are to compensate and make whole the injured person. So you will see jury instructions sometimes that will tell people not to factor that in. It doesn't mean that they're going to listen to the jury instructions. They're just not supposed to. But the system is not supposed to be punitive in the vast majority of these cases, certainly not in any of the auto accident cases. There are some situations in which Maryland will allow and award punitive damages, but they're very rare. And I am not aware of a situation in which an auto accident yields such a scenario. So all of those extra things, while they're important to know for putting the case together, they're not going to escalate the value of the claim here in Maryland. Again, different jurisdictions, different rules. There are some jurisdictions where it has a dynamic impact on the value of the claim, but just not here in Maryland. The third factor, since we've talked about the two factors, and I feel like I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't mention it, is insurance. We've talked about insurance. We've talked about your insurance policy. We've talked about things that you can do to protect yourself, ways that you can self-check your own insurance policy to make sure that you've got a buffer of coverage. That way, if you are injured badly, there's enough insurance there, if not from the other driver, but from your insurance company, who will have the right, should they choose to exercise it, to sue the driver and get their money back. That's probably the closest thing to, quote, punishment that exists within this system. Otherwise, it's all about money. And of course, money can be, making an individual pay money can be a punishment. But a lot of times the right to recover directly against that individual is held by your insurance company so they can get their money back. Not so much you don't always have that right. You can go and we can take a case to trial. We always have that right. But collecting that judgment for the excess money oftentimes very, very difficult. If we are in a situation where that is something that we're looking at and that makes sense given the scenario, really bad injuries, minimal insurance, we do the due diligence of making sure that we've checked into the assets of the at-fault driver to confirm that, hey, is this worth pursuing? Yes, no, okay, move on. A lot of times people who have minimum, this is not a rule, but a lot of times people who have cut rate insurance, minimum limits insurance policies generally also do not have the assets worth pursuing beyond the insurance policy, unfortunately. So the best way to make sure that if you're ever in a serious accident that you get the money that you need is to check on your insurance policy. So again, I will put that link in the comments, or not the comment section, the description section here. So you're going to see those in YouTube in the comments. So if you're seeing this on Facebook, hop over to the YouTube channel, Bowers Law MD. Look in the comments section. It's going to link you to those other videos. Super valuable. All right, we got to wrap this thing up. Again, if you have other questions that you would like to have addressed and answered here on this podcast, we do it every Monday morning, 10 a.m. Send them to info@bowerslawmd.com. Tune in, follow us, set the alerts, be in the chat so that we can do these giveaways. Right now, we don't have enough people here to do the giveaway. Next week, hopefully we do. Again, it's 10 a.m. Share this. Tell a friend. Invite a friend. Have them hop on. You can do it from your phone. Be in there. Send a chat. We're going to give away next week, hopefully, a $25 gift card to the grocery outlet here in Elkton. Last week, we gave tickets to the opening game, the home opener for the Philadelphia Flyers. 9th row center ice seats. Amazing seats. I'm going to tell you right now, as we grow this thing, there will be more of those amazing seats to some of the Flyers games, maybe some Ravens games. Who knows? And speaking of tickets, we talked about this event last week. Go to BetweenTwoMinds.com. Right here in Elkton, you can support the Maryland Legends and the Lady Duke Softball Club. A fundraiser show on Thursday, November 14th. Not only is most of your money, like 90% of the ticket sales, go to support these causes, this cause. It's one organization, two entities, two different programs, baseball and softball, but it's all under one umbrella. You get to support these great causes. And at halftime, the intermission of this show, mind reading and hypnosis, we're going to do a drawing for a pair of club level tickets to the December 1st Ravens Eagles game at M&T Bank Stadium. These tickets are, if you look at the price of these tickets on the third party market, they're like $3,000 a pair for club level tickets. It's absolutely wild. This is Attorney Bowers, your accident and injury attorney. I clicked the wrong thing, so the border disappeared. We fixed it now. We will see you next week. Be well out there. Be safe. And thank you for tuning in.